Hey guys, thanks for joining again. This is our tech session for day 2 of our Cloud Connection Summit. Very excited to have with us some superstars today. We have Chris Hocker. We have Kelvin. I'm not going to butcher the last name. I'll try. Tegelar. But first, from Lime Networks and Cyberdrain. But first, we want to hear from OneBill. We have one of our gold sponsors. We've been working with OneBill for a couple of years now. Had a great relationship. Want to introduce Saran, VP of Sales over at OneBill, and JK, who's the CEO of OneBill. Very nice to have you, gentlemen.
Yep, thanks for the opportunity. It's been the second day for us here on the platform. I have to say, this is a wonderful platform created by OIT, and OneBill is really glad to be a part of this and network with all the MSPs and VARs and all the distributors out here in the business space, right? So my name is Saravanan Rajendran, and I'm pretty sure nobody can say it back, just like you, Ray. So you can call me Sharan. I'm the VP of Sales at OneBill, and I'm based in Toronto. So, to give a very short brief about OneBill software, we offer a single platform to help you with your lead to cash process, right? So just, if I were to say that in 6 simple steps, anything to do, from defining your products and services that you want to sell to your markets and pricing them, and actually selling them, whether it's your B2C channels or B2B, provision the services for your customers, your phone lines, your connectivity, your number portability, and so on and so forth, and charge and bill them for their usage, irrespective of the charge type, irrespective of the type of bills, recurring, non-recurring, and so on and so forth. And finally, collect the money and settle with your partners. This is your entire revenue management journey, and we have a module or so in our unified platform to help you get there, right? So that you focus on your core offerings, what differentiation you can take to the market, what value addition you're able to do, to win the business while we take care of all your revenue management needs, right? So that's pretty much what we do, and we believe we are good at what we're doing based on our customer feedbacks, including OIT. So, keeping the sales pitch aside, if you have any questions with respect to your lead to cash process or your current billing, reach out to us. We would love to help. No sales obligations. We are a community at the end of the day, right? So that's what we take pride of the most.
Yeah, absolutely. Before JK gets started, I just want to pitch in there real quick. It's a phenomenal platform. There's tons of automation. I mean, with your workbench for the automation, that is awesome. I love that. Quote, cash, bill, and you keep your dev cycles ridiculous. It's a monthly dev cycle with new releases. I love it. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. JK, you have anything to add here?
I think, both Saravanan and you have actually said everything about OneBill. But anyway, I think today's session is all about Kelvin. So let me do the honor of introducing Kelvin. So good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for joining here this afternoon. So today we are pleased to welcome Mr. Kelvin Taliger, a very special guest from Netherlands. Mr. Kelvin is the CTO at Lime Networks, a 22-employee MSP based in the Netherlands, Rotterdam. He is also an active blogger at cyberdrain.com. And today, he will be sharing with us his expert knowledge in monitoring automation with PowerShell. So with that, I ask that you give your full attention to Mr. Kelvin and help me in welcoming him to the stage. Kelvin, over to you.
Thanks, JK.
I feel like there should be thunderous applause.
Wonderful introduction. Exactly. Thunderous applause. Everyone is celebrating. Life is good. Hey guys, I'm glad you're all here. I'm seeing that the room is filling up nicely, and I'm really excited to be showing you some PowerShell stuff today. But I'm not just going to be talking about PowerShell. I'm going to try to teach you all a little bit more about how APIs can be used for MSPs specifically. There's a lot of confusion on how difficult it is to implement APIs, to actually use them actively, and make sure that you can manage your business with them easier. I'm going to be giving you PowerShell examples specifically because it's one of the things that I work a lot with. There's a lot of other options except PowerShell. If you look at Microsoft Flow, which is a drag and drop interface, you can also learn how to play with APIs just with that without having to learn any code. As I'm the PowerShell guy, it's of course the thing that I enjoy doing most. I'll also be giving you a little surprise at the end, in which I hope you'll all be able to use the API for OITVOIP a little bit better. So let's get started. Yeah, so what is an API? I'm not going to deep dive into all the technical aspects about what an API is and what an API does, because truly I believe that kind of stuff is boring. It's too technical, it's too advanced, and no one really likes hearing about it. I do have to explain specifically how we're going to use APIs, so I am going to try to tackle that. So an API simply is a way to talk to an application and influence settings or extract settings from that specific application. So we're going to be using, as an example, the OIT NetSapiens API to show you how we're going to extract information and how we're going to set information in there. Most modern APIs are based on REST. REST is a protocol that simply is an HTTP protocol, or HTTPS in most cases, where you're able to log in on a remote server, extract the data, and where you can extract data and set data. So we're going to get started with some PowerShell examples. I do have to say that there are some difficulties with all APIs, and that is specifically the login procedure. All APIs feel like they need to reinvent authentication completely. So there's a couple of tricks that you have to know, and I'll be showing them during this session, as most REST APIs are now using OAuth, as it's called, which is a fairly simple way of automating. Yeah, so let's get started with some code. So I here have some PowerShell examples. First off, we'll have to grab the documentation for the specific platform that we're trying to use. I mean, without documentation, we're pretty much lost. You all know this portal, of course, but we're going right here. And then you'll see that I went to the wrong page. Super fast. Okay, so here, this is the API reference, and a lot of APIs simply have what's called a Swagger reference or an API reference, and from that you'll be able to watch exactly what the API is capable of doing. You'll see here that there's a list of objects and a list of methods. Each of these methods means you can read data, set data, delete data, or create new data. For example, a new client, or you could delete a client, anything like that. So if we click, for example, on the domains in this case, and we want to create a new domain, we'll see a little piece of documentation on specifically how that API call works. Here we're seeing we need to make a post request, and we need to use this URL to make that request. And then you'll see which parameters are required. Now I'll jump back into the code and I'll show you exactly how we're going to log in and how we're going to use the API to extract some information from the OITVOIP portal. I was told by Ray not to call it OIT.
I will kick you from the session if you say OITVOIP again.
Sorry about that, man.
You get one pass because I butchered your last name. So.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So the first thing is that you'll have to log in. And like I said, each API has its own complex way of logging in. The NetSapiens API is fairly straightforward. You simply have to enter all of these credentials. You have to enter the base URL, in which case of OITVOIP would be this. You have to enter your client ID and your secret, which I believe the support desk can generate for you. I'm not sure if you can do that yourself.
Submit a request to support, and it doesn't matter if you're a reseller or a direct or channel. We will provide credentials for you.
Exactly. Next to that, you'll simply need your username and your password to connect. The same username and password you use for the manage.oitvoip.com portal. Okay, so first we're going to grab a token, and the token simply is a sort of a login cookie. It's the same as a cookie. You logged into a website, and at that moment, you get the information. You're able to log in the website and get the information. So we're running the selection, and now I'm going to show you that in the token, there's a lot more information. You'll see that currently our domain is oitdemo.com, our access token, and we have a refresh token. The access token is only valid for 1 hour. So you have to keep that in mind when you're running scripts or when you're creating things, that the access token will expire after an hour. If your script is running longer for an hour than an hour, in the middle of it, you'll have to check, or in the middle of the script, you'll have to refresh your token. You'll have to keep checking if that is not out of date. So now that we've logged in, we're actually going to start making a request. Most requests to APIs are simply done by HTTPS. In this case, we'll have to add some headers to say that we're able to log in and give our cookie to the server. And I'm seeing some remarks in the chat that the screen share isn't dominant. Maybe we can check that out for a second.
Kevin, can you take a look?
Yeah, looking into that, guys. Just bear with me.
Of course, yeah, they're working on it. Okay, so I'll continue for a little bit on explaining exactly how the login process works. Like I said, we just generated a token and we're able to see that access token right here. This is valid for an hour. Here we're saying we're creating headers. Headers are simply what we send to a server at the moment that we want to log in. So it's the cookie of an API. That's the best explanation that I've ever found, and the one that pretty much everyone understands. So with this cookie, we can start extracting data from the API. In our case, we're going to create a small payload. We're going to send a signal to the API saying, hey, guys, we want to get the object device. We want to read this. We want to read this object. We're doing this with the domain that's saved in our token, which is OIT demo. And we want to get a return format of JSON. And JSON is a format that is Java something, 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 something. It simply is an easy to read format that we want to get back. So at the moment that I run this, running the selection, it connects to the API and starts getting that data. The moment that we get that data, we're using this payload and we're sending an invoke REST method. So PowerShell has an internalized method to connect to APIs. So if we now check $devices, you'll see that we get a huge list of devices, and it's practically unreadable. I mean, if we're scrolling in this and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, it's just endless data. It's ridiculous.
We can't do anything to massage the data, right? That's how it's always going to look, and that's how we have to read it.
That's how it's always going to look, except that there's cool methods as to show exactly how PowerShell processes the data. This is called an array. It's a list of data. And if we want to get that list of data all prettified, we can use the object outGrid view. Now we're getting this, which is already a lot more readable list. It's pretty much a simple Excel file that we can just say, okay, you know what? I want to copy these couple of columns to Excel and do with it what I want. You'll see that, hey, it's a registered endpoint. This is a GrandStream phone. This is a Yealink phone. It's all in the domain OIT demo. We'll see some passwords, that kind of stuff, the SIP passwords. And so in that way, you can demonstrate exactly how you can demonstrate how easy it is to extract data. I mean, right now we just got a list of all devices, and those devices can be put out to a grid view, and we can put them in Excel or any other document. The problem with it is it's still a little bit unreadable. It's when you use the outGrid view, you're still getting a lot of garbage in there. You're seeing like, okay, hey, I'm not really sure how to process that. It's not comfortable to read. So we're going to collect some more data, and I'm going to show you how to convert it to an actual document. So this time we're going to get the DAO plan data, and that works in exactly the same way. We use the API website. We're checking, okay, you know what? I want to get the DAO plan data. So read DAO plans. And it shows us exactly how we have to create our object. It says here, okay, hey, we need to, for sure, enter the domain. Okay, so we'll enter our domain. We'll say we want to read the DAO plan, and again, we want the same format returned. So we'll execute the same code again. And at that moment, in $plans, we'll have a list of all the DAO plans that are available in the portal. And you're already seeing that with this way, you can start combining data very easily. So we'll collect some more information. For example, the call queue info, the queue statistics. Exactly the same method. You keep using the same thing. You say here, hey, I want to get the call queue stats, and all of these things you can simply find in documentation. You can simply say, hey, I want to get recordings. You just look in documentation for recordings, and you'll see how to make your object.
So something I want to add here real quick is that most API documentation you're going to find recurring themes, right? Like the NetSapiens, and Chris, feel free to jump into, but the NetSapiens API, you're going to have an object, you're going to have an action, you're going to have some kind of parameters you're going to apply against that object and the action. And every API call is going to follow that format. Those actions are usually going to be one of a handful of actions, right? Create, read, update, delete, or whatever it is, check the documentation. But most APIs they create some convention and they follow that convention through. So you're going to want to create repeatable code following those same conventions. It makes your life easier.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that we're covering in a minute. Now, when we look at, we also want to get the CDR data. And we're seeing here that I'm calling the CDR2. That is because if you type CDR here, you'll see a lot of CDR information. So in this case, we want to read a CDR, read CDR by domain. And here you're seeing that we're having some extra mandatory parameters. So in the same way that we've built our object before, here we're saying we want to add the start date and we want to add the end date. The end date in this case is in the future. That's not a problem. It still accepts it. So here we're getting our CDR information. We're running the selection again. And as you noticed, that request took a little bit longer because you have to remember that every time you make a request, that the package size is going to increase as more data you're requesting. If you're going to request all the data for a year, it might be that the CDR will be, the request will be saying to the server, like, hey, give me a year of all the CDR records. And that's just going to take some time because it has to collect that data and send it over. So now that we have all this information, it's still pretty useless. I mean, I can do CDR out grid view once more. And I'll drag that up there. And you'll see, like, OK, this is still not very comfortable to read. So now that I'm not sure if anyone, I expect that most of you follow my blog, but if you don't, I have a lot of blogs about automatic documentation, and that's actually one of the things I specialize in. Any documentation that is not automated is always out of date. At the moment that you run this little script, and I'll be sharing this snippet with you because it is a little more complex than I can just explain in half an hour, you'll be able to get a small HTML file, selection. And there it is. You'll get a small HTML file with a readable interface. You'll see, like, hey, there's some devices in here, and you'll actually be able to see all the information that the device publishes. You'll be able to see all the dial plans, all the call queues, and all the call queue statistics. Up here, you also have a second button for the CDR viewer. And you can do this with any information you extract from the API with just a few small edits inside of the script. For example, if I want to say, you know what, I don't want the CDR information, I'm just removing this entire tab. And now the CDR information will no longer be inside of that HTML file. You can do this for a lot of your clients. You can do this for some, that kind of stuff. One thing that is very important when you're approaching APIs is that the data you collect is often in a much more raw format than you'd expect. If I right now look at the CDR variable that I made, you'll see that there's time_start, terms_to URI, terms sub. They're using a different method than what you're used to seeing in the web interface. That's something you'll have to cover for yourself. You can say you'll want to, for example, say CDR ID, you want to remove that. So we're going to select the object, and then exclude a property called CDR_ID. And then you'll see that we got the same information again. My mistype's probably the CDR ID, but you get the gist of it. You'll be able to exclude specific properties that you don't want the client to see. You don't want to see org from URI, most likely. It's useless to a client. So you'll be able to select specifically on those objects. Okay, so now I have a little surprise because all of this code, when you look at it directly, it looks reasonably complex. And I'm someone that is really of the type of programming called dry programming. don't repeat yourself. There's also the alternative to that. We like typing. It's people that make this code and constantly repeat themselves. You'll see that this entire part is repeatable data. This entire part is repeatable data, etc., etc. And because of that, I've made a little surprise right before this presentation 3 days ago, and that is a NetSapiens PowerShell module. And the PowerShell module is actually something that you will be able to install right now. You can simply run install module ps NetSapiens. You can hit enter. It will download it from the PowerShell gallery. And at that moment, you'll be completely ready to start using the NetSapiens API. Instead of having to do all of these complex things, like this, logging in, grabbing a token, having to pass your credentials in plain text in a script, you'll be able to simply run one command instead of that entire script. You'll say, I want to connect to the NS API. It will request some information. Let me just grab that. I have that in a file here. And it will actually grab it securely. As you can see, my password right now is in asterisk and not in plain text anymore. It's safely secured. So from that moment, you'll actually be able to do all of those things that I just did with more simple command. For example, I want to get something from the API, and I want to get the resource devices, and I can just use tab completion for this. I can use my tab button to see, okay, what things start with D. In this case, I want to get my devices. I hit enter, and it processes that for me and does the same as all this code up here. So that's something that's very important when you start working with APIs in general. The don't repeat yourself principle also applies to APIs. There is always someone, well, in most cases, there is someone that already developed something for it. Why would you spend the time in looking for all these crazy alternatives when there's most likely a PowerShell module available? In this case, this is an example that one of my friends, Daniel, asked me for. He wants to be able to enable the recording for specific users without having to click 40 times in the portal. You have to go to the user, click on yes. I mean, if we go to a user right now, I should be logged in the portal. I have to click on the domain. And then wait, and then wait, and then wait. And I have to click on the users and then wait. And wrong domain. You'll always see that. And as you can see, I made one misclick and I'm already spending time waiting and doing nothing. I'm not being useful at the moment. So if you have someone that needs to enable recording for 10 users suddenly, and we'll take an example, Nathan Hale, you'll see that record user calls are currently disabled. So we'll go to our API. We're saying, hey, I'm going to get all devices, and I want a selection box. So right now we have oh, that's the wrong screen. Sorry guys, misclicked. So now we have a little selection box, and we can actually just look for Nathan Hill. We can type up here, Nathan. Well, let's enable it for all Nathans because I'm lazy. And you'll see that if I click OK now, for each device in devices, so each device we've selected, we want to enable the resource recording, and we want to do that for the specific device. So now if I run this selection, you'll see, hey, I'm recording. Oh, that is a shame. Either my session ended, or I'm using a beta version of the module and it's not working currently. In theory, it should activate the, no, I see my mistake. This might be all. Let's check real quick.
There's always a semicolon, man.
Yeah, there's always a semicolon. Nope. Yeah, this is my personal developed modules. So I'm sorry, guys. I wanted to demonstrate how cool it was, how easily you could enable the API. Unfortunately, yeah, my module, my beta version, isn't completely up to date with the one in the store currently.
And because PowerShell is so powerful, as of today, we're going to shut down all GUI access to the manager portal, and all management will be from PowerShell from now on. Congratulations, guys.
I do that. I do that. Absolutely. Of course, the portal is slow for me because I'm very far away. But yeah, no. There's a lot of settings you can change with the API, and this is just one of the examples. You do have to be careful with what you're doing, because the API, it's not easy to just say, okay, I'm going to revert to a previous moment. If you make a mistake and, for example, you change the password to all of your users, that password is going to be changed for all of your users, and you're going to have to reconnect each of the phones, or you're going to have to reset the password back to the previous state. So you have to be careful with that. It's not a simple matter of, okay, you know what, I'm going to click a button right now to revert it. Because of that danger, the PowerShell module does have an extra feature. For any delete or set or create requests, it has the what if mode. And if you simply type the current command you're typing and you add minus what if to the ending, it will state, I am going to change this setting on this phone for with this information. And because you can use that, you can see, oh, hey, I made a mistake. I'm going to set the password for each phone to the same thing. It's easier to intercept. So the what if option is very powerful in that. The PowerShell module is available right now. The PowerShell module is based on work that Ray made before. It's on my GitHub. If you if you want to collaborate on it, if you're saying like, hey, I want new features, or hey, something isn't working the way that I expected, just send an issue. Just send me a message saying like, hey, this isn't the way that I'd imagined it to work, and we can look into it together. I do have to say that I'm not a direct user of the OITVOIP platform. I mean, I'm in the Netherlands, and we have different suppliers here. So yeah,
for now,
exactly.
No, but we will continue to collaborate, and we will contribute to the platform, to the GitHub. I just find it's awesome because 3 months ago, you did not want to be on GitHub publicly, and now you have tons of resources available on GitHub. I love it.
I was anti-GitHub about 4 months ago, and that was mostly because I was worried about the maintainability of it all. But I've just accepted it, and
we're all benefiting from it. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Because you're using the logged in credentials, it's going to respect the authorization of the logged in user. So you don't get to do stuff beyond your scope, right? If it's a basic user, you're not doing reseller stuff. It'll just error out,
it'll just give you an ugly error like it did right now for me. Another thing that might be very beneficial to you. I wasn't sure on how domains work specifically. So when you're executing connect NS API, it connects to the default domain in the token. You can simply say, use the minus domain switch. I'm not sure what the switch was, but there's a switch to make sure that you're using a different domain. So you're going to apply the settings to the OIT demo domain instead of the 999 OIT demo domain, those kind of things. So it's very easy to switch between subscriptions, I believe.
Awesome. Thank you very much, dude. I absolutely appreciate it. This is and thank you for cleaning up my code, because I get so many requests on my GitHub. Now it's done according to the Lime Network CyberDrain way, and I absolutely appreciate that.
It's a bit cleaner.
I can imagine. And we get those people all the time. Every time somebody asks something and it's not available in the front end, and I say, well, you can do it via the API. This is true to life. And Jay, I'll call people out here. They say, oh, when they say that, it's magic. That means that we can't do it. You just made it every IT guy, every MSP knows PowerShell, should know PowerShell. If you don't know PowerShell, I have a blog. Actually, Kelvin has a blog called CyberDrain that you come up with stuff, every 30 seconds you have a new blog entry?
I'm trying every minute, but.
Every minute. And it has amazing and beautiful examples of stuff we should be doing in PowerShell. PowerShell for MSPs, that's our magic sauce. If you noticed on Reddit today, and I'll make it quick because we want to hand off to Chris. But if you notice on Reddit today, Gavin goes by Gavsto on socials, major ConnectWise Automate user for years. He's written scripts. He's contributed to the community. He was just talking about making his stuff agnostic, seeing what his scripts can do, move them over to PowerShell instead. So if he ever had to switch RMMs or switch platforms, he could do it at a moment's notice because it's all PowerShell, and PowerShell is universal. So if you can do PowerShell, you can literally just power everything. No pun intended. So
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly the case. Now I do have to spam a little. I'm having a new webinar where I'll be covering PowerShell for beginners. It's going to be September 2nd. So if you guys want to join, I'll post the link in the chat right now. I expect that most of you already signed up, but yeah, you never know. There might be one or two that haven't yet. So please join me for that. It's going to be lots of fun. We're going to be doing lots of PowerShell stuff, and I'm really going to show you how to do all of the things that I did right now, but more in depth. I'm going to try to teach you a little bit about how to use PowerShell instead. And
Absolutely.
Of course, go to my blog on cybertrain.com.
Thank you very much, Kelvin. What we're going to do, I know the video share wasn't what we wanted it to be. I promise you I will bug Kelvin later, and we will do another full webinar on this stuff at another time so we can see things fully.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we're doing a webinar, just so you know.
Cool.
I love Kelvin. He's down for anything. But guys, follow his blog. Seriously, sign up for this. I'm going to sign up for this. I've been using PowerShell for years, but as you can see, I can write things one way. It's good to get another person's perspective. So whether you're a pro, you're an amateur, or you're just learning this stuff, learn, watch others do it. And with that said, Kevin, I'm actually going to bump you down, and I'll bump myself down so we can give Chris the larger screen share. But thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thanks, man. Cheers.
Chris, so
hey,
Chris, for those of you that don't know, and I can't imagine many, well, you know what? With our resellers, maybe you don't know. Chris,
I don't know a lot of the names on here. I'm looking, so it's definitely it's definitely good to see some new names.
So I'd like to introduce Chris Ocker, VP of Engineering at NetSapiens. NetSapiens is our PBX, our switch software. It's what powers our voice network. He has graciously, him and I have a good relationship. He's always helping us out. We collaborate pretty frequently, and he graciously accepted to come on and show us some of the cool stuff with WebSockets that we can do. And V41 has more WebSockety. Can we say that? So
we can make up words today. I think that is okay. It's 2020. We can make up and do whatever we want to do this year. So
awesome.
WebSockety is going. I didn't title the session or the PowerPoint I made WebSockety, but I might go edit that before we.
Nice. I'm gonna kick myself down to viewer so you can take the entirety of the screen.
Should I even go as far as muting my video? Will that help with the?
No, because it'll
viewing?
just go to the box. It won't do anything.
Yeah. Okay. Let me share my screen here. All right. So I'm not a big PowerPoint guy, but I'm just going to go through this quick, just because I had it and it's collateral so people can copy and paste out of it down the line later. So Ray, you can confirm you can see my screen. We're all good there. I think let me confirm. Yeah. Okay, looks good. I can see that. So oops. Yep, trying to avoid that, sorry. Okay, so here we go. My name is Chris Ocker, VP of Engineering. I work in our engineering team, but I've done it all. I've been here 13 years at NetSapiens. So tackled it all, know all the problems that the people like Ray are have and are trying to solve. So just some disclaimers before this. Again, I ripped this slide from a previous presentation that I gave to some of our clients. I'm going to show some samples, proof of concepts, idea generators. I'm not, none of these are ready to go. So just for clarification, they're not production ready. They're not validated by our QA department, supported by NetSapiens optimized air-free planned in production roadmap, or an example of NetSapiens are my personal coding skill set. So there is definitely not the best use cases in some of these, or best processes in some of these, but I do want to kind of show some of the data. So GitHub, github.com/Ocker, AAKER, my last name. We'll have the code if you guys want to follow along with any of that. So WebSockets, as Ray said, V41 got a little bit more WebSockety, but we've had it for really made available to everyone since V39, but we've these slides are a couple years old too. We've probably been deploying it for 7 or 8 years now, and inside of our portal management portal. In V39, we made it accessible really to anybody as long as you can get an access token. And Kelvin did a great job. I love seeing other people present the API. It's always a refreshing view to see how that's done. So yeah, as long as you can do that, and Kelvin showed that pretty easily, get that access token, you can access the data through WebSockets. And it's not as full of data set or API, you can literally do everything. WebSockets is not everything, but it gives you the ability to actually stream the data. And by stream means on-demand events. You're not having to pull, you're not having to request data. You actually subscribe to the data and we'll send you data when there's changes. This is very similar to those of you familiar with the voice side, how a SIP subscribe and notify works. It's almost a similar concept. We're just doing it over secure WebSockets. And in most cases, data is available in under a second after things have changed. Benefits, obviously, all encrypted, session-based, very light to actually handle all of this implementation there.
More efficient when you do that, right, with the WebSockets, because you don't have to go polling.
Correct. Yeah. Sorry, I just want to make sure that everything was working there. Yeah, very efficient for both the server and the client. It's really kind of a mutually beneficial relationship there, because the client doesn't have to go polling and the server doesn't have to field all those polling requests. So we actually use a tool called socket.io. And for those familiar with that tool, it came about many years ago before WebSockets actually were predominant. Now, WebSocket, so pretty much every browser for many years has supported WebSockets, but the idea behind socket.io was it would try to give you WebSockets and then fall back to something called long polling, or going back even to something called Flash. For those familiar with Flash, that it would fall back through all of those methods and provide the same interface. Now, pretty much everything's going to be WebSockets, but we still do use the library, because the library is actually very easy to do this. Most of the ports run on port 8001, and you'll need to subscribe. So I'll get into the code a little bit here. Very easy to set up. Again, this is all going to be JavaScript. So JavaScript is the language that we're showing here. You can connect in different languages through Socket.io. They have different libraries ported into a bunch of different languages. But JavaScript is what we use, and I'll show most of it here. What I'll end up showing here is actually a Chrome extension that's going to connect via the API, get the access token, and then connect via the WebSocket. Want to show this in PowerPoint just so it's viewable, easier, and then you guys can take the collateral and run with it a little bit too. So first step is obviously to connect. You'll have the server name here. Again, everything is going to be secure. That's an important part. Only HTTPS we'll be doing. What we'll do here is actually make just a JSON array. We just need the domain, any kind of filter that will be used. We talked about the object and the action. We'll use the object here. Type is going to be call, and the token is a bearer token. It's part of the OAuth spec. That's the access token format. Then we will subscribe. This is really just an event that we're subscribing to the socket with that data. Again, very similar to a SIP subscribe for those familiar with that side. It's really just a request for data. Once that data happens, we'll get all of the subsequent updates. And again, on the last thing, we need to handle a callback. So this happens to be for call data, which I'm going to show in my next demo, but there's lots of different objects. Here we are, bearer, domain filter. Again, I just covered those, so I'll go through those. We do have a bunch of different objects: call, presence, queue, agent, UC chat. So if you want to get into chat, queue and agent for call center type applications. And then there's a new one in V41, CDR, and I'll show that in the demo as well. Oh, there it is.
And this lets you only get that data that, it goes back to that efficiency. It only lets you get that data that you're most interested in. Right?
Correct. Yeah, it is going to come across as raw data. meaning you're going to get that whole blob of the object, very similar to how Kelvin was showing it, where you're getting all of the fields. So it's going to be up to your application to pick which fields you want. Nobody needs all of the data, but you're going to get all of the data. The server side just gives you what it has. So your client will be in charge of picking out what it is. And I'll show that here in an example.
And if you happen to need multiple subscriptions, that's not an issue. It handles it gracefully.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you can do as many subscriptions, and actually it's designed for high volume subscriptions. Obviously, anybody who is using the manager portal, the Snap Mobile web app, really any of the NetSapiens provided applications at this point are doing some level of WebSockets. For those using Snap Mobile Web, we're actually doing SIP over secure WebSockets. So WebSockets are hugely used across the internet now for all different kinds of use cases. So this presentation actually had 2 demos. I'm going to skip this one, but I left it in the presentation. It's a JS fiddle. You can go play around with it. We'll do WebSockets here. I have it all laid out with different all the different functions you'll need. But what I want to do is actually show what I think is a little bit better of a demo. It's actually a Chrome extension that will do a pop-up for a new call to a user and actually do a lookup. So I left some links here. I based this heavily off of just the Chrome default extension application, the notification example, and then just because I needed a relatively free demo account, I'm using White Pages API in this example. I'm not getting kickback from White Pages. It probably is not an application you'd ever really want to use. There's alternatives out there, but as you can see, they give you 200 free queries. So that's what this demo has here. The code, again, it's right off my GitHub, simple Chrome pop-up. But what I want to do is first and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and just demo this. So for those who haven't played with a Chrome extension before, you actually can just load it right through. Once you turn developer mode on in Chrome, you can reload it. Caller ID lookup demo is what I call this application. I even left the default toast icon on there. That's all comes from Chrome. I'll go ahead and reload it. And what you can actually see now, it's JavaScript that's actually running in the background of an application here. So I'll go ahead and reload this one more time. And what's happening is in the background of Chrome, we're actually have a application that is contacting the NetSapiens API and setting up a WebSocket connection to the NetSapiens WebSocket server, and will actually stream data. So what I'm going to do is I got a phone here. I'm just going to call a test number that should ring through to a user on the NetSapiens platform. And what we're going to see is if I show you on the top right here, this is actually a Chrome pop-up. And what you'll see here is my name. It actually was able to determine that it was me calling. That happens to be my office number. And it actually did a location lookup of city and state. I'm not really in Del Mar, but it came pretty close based on the NPA NXX of that. So what the power here is pretty huge, right? You can now take data and you can do whatever you want with it. I happen to do a quick and dirty lookup of White Pages, but this goes towards CRM integrations, call center applications where you need to pop additional data, anything like that, you can actually trigger more work to be done. So what I want to do is kind of dig into first what we're actually seeing at the network level. This application has very little user interface, almost nothing. That pop-up was really the extent of it, in addition to the options. But I want to show how this actually connected. So what you're seeing in the network tab is exactly what Kelvin showed earlier in PowerShell of actually making a token request. And in this side, we're going to get JSON back, and that's what we're actually going to see. There's your access token, there's a refresh token. You can see the different data, different domain, etc. And then what you'll also see is a setup. If I go to WebSockets here, I can actually see the WebSocket connection. And what you'll see here is all of the messages. And hopefully, Ray, you can tell me if this is big enough for people to see, and they might not be able to. I'll blow this up as big as I can. But what you're seeing is actually the subscription over this WebSocket. So it's a packet-based communication where you're sending one message back and one message. So it's all TCP based, but it's almost like a UDP connection where you're sending a message that has to be responded to kind of in a different way. So in this example, I've subscribed to two different things. I've subscribed to call data for one user. That's what gives me the pop-up. And then I've subscribed to CDR data for the domain. So think of an application where you need to know when a call ends so you can go pull a recording or trigger some other kind of notification based on what happened. So these are the two subscriptions. You do see the authentication as part of that. And you do see a message that says status complete. Now you also see the data start coming in when I made the call. So the call came in, and then this is when the call ended. Again, raw JSON. There's a lot of data here. 90% of it probably doesn't apply to you or be of interest to you, but you do need some of it so you can actually go make the lookup in these specific cases. So I'll go through bouncing back here to the JavaScript console just so we can see it again. There's no interface here, but what I want to show is just some of the data. So this is actually the response that we got back from the third-party API. I'm using, again, White Pages API just because it was a free trial that I could sign up for. But this very well could be your personal data set, your client's data set, your CRM, whatever it might be that holds the information. So you can
get
see
those requests all the time for call pop-up notifications for when a call happens, do this. When somebody goes do not disturb, or somebody goes busy, do this. When a call queue has X amount of users in the call queue, can you send an alert? WebSockets allows you to do all of that.
Yeah. Now
you have to say do this.
You got to do a little work to figure out what you want to do with it. But in this case, you can see this number belongs to me. It is correct. It doesn't have my address, which is good, I guess. It knows the rough area, longitude, latitude. But if I put in my cell phone number, it gives a surprising amount more information, probably more than it probably should. But powerful information, again, more powerful if you're dipping a more useful data set, client data set, your CRM, that type of information. So what I also want to show here is a couple seconds after the call, we did actually get the full CDR. So if you needed to do something based on the completion of a call, whether it be hospitality integration that needs to get added to a billing a bill for a room, or maybe a voicemail is left, you can look for a voicemail and trigger actions to notify the completion, notify someone that a voicemail is left. So lots of different things can be achieved there, all based on WebSockets. So the fun part too is I'll go and look at the options here. For those not familiar, you do have the ability to say options. And really, this is all that has to be programmed in. And I programmed this in as a complete use case, but if you were to make a production version of this, you'd probably hard code some of these other settings and really just leave it up to username and password, where a user just needs to enter their username and password and go from there. Again, most all of this is completely ripped from Google's examples. They have an example on the options, they have an example on the notifications. So I just stitched them together and added some WebSockets to it. I do have the code, again, available on GitHub. We'll go through just a little tiny bit of it. Where's the background.js? So you can see here, function. Again, sorry if you guys aren't seeing it too well with the images, but this lookup number, it's just going to hit their API with the phone number, and then it's going to handle the responses as JavaScript, and then run this post notifications, which will just go find what information, again, first name, last name, city, state, it found, and it actually notified it. I'll show you one more time here. I'll call and we'll look at this pop-up that should come up in the top right. I just made a phone call. You can even go as far here. I don't know if you can see the top right. I actually put in settings for answer and reject. So lots of things you can code different examples in there. Answer, reject. Even this little human is this user PNG, so you can brand the application. You can do a lot of different fun stuff with it, but really shows the power of data. Really, that's the key piece of all of this.
Super cool stuff, dude. I love it. I mean, the downside to doing this stuff, whether it's APIs, working with APIs like Kelvin was talking about, or working with WebSockets, webhooks, subscriptions, whatever, is that your imagination tends to go crazy.
It is sometimes, yeah, it is sometimes a little bit addicting when you get there. The power of it really goes to the stickiness of a client. I know my team sees it all the time when they're trying to sell a deal, right? I'm sure you guys see it when you're fighting against someone that is in a sticky relationship with a vendor. They might have a bunch of different issues with that vendor, but they have one feature that is preventing them from switching, and the power of that, and being able to adapt to some of those features and get that client sticky on your side. Really,
and that's one of the reasons we love the platform so much, is that it's so malleable, right? Like the stuff that's in the GUI is in the GUI, and the stuff that's not, you can work around and do your own stuff. And it's made us. It's what's allowed us to make some of the tools we've created, like our UC Director. It's allowed us to have the integrations like we're announcing with Mondigo, and just having these tools available.
Correct. Yeah. With the Mondigo integration, it's the same. They're using WebSockets, obviously taking it to a whole nother level than this demo, but very similar use case where you're actually trying to get that data.
But this is the foundation, right? This is the beginnings of that. To get from this to that, you're starting here. So
yes, yeah, exactly.
Well, Chris, thank you so much, dude. I want to be very respectful of your time. Kelvin, thank you also. Guys, cyberdrain.com. Chris, I put your GitHub up on the in the chat. Yep. I did upload the presentation already. It's on the files at the top right.
Okay. Great.
So thank you very much, and thanks to all the audience for putting up with this. I apologize, the screen was not what we were looking to do, but we have the PowerShell, we have the module, and we have the PowerPoint. So, and my team is always available to answer any questions, of course. Thanks again, Chris. You have an awesome day, man.
All right, thanks, Ray. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks, guys.